My name is Kevin Martin, and I'm coming to you from the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program here in Portland, New York. I'm here with Thom Betts today. He is a part owner and operator of a family vineyard farm in Westfield, New York. And he's really hit the ground running with some of our sensor technology work that has been spearheaded by Dr. Thom Betts. And we just want to take a moment to discuss an NDVI map that he has. And this, I think, is what the project envisions a lot of growers doing with sensor technology, is bringing in a map, discussing it with their viticulturalist, who I am pretending to be for today because we do have an open position that we're looking for. So I've been filling in that area, but this is how we envision this sensor technology working. It can create conversations with people who don't necessarily have an intimate knowledge with your vineyard, gives them a lot of data to work with so that they can provide better advice, and it gives the grower some data to work with so that they can make better decisions. So a lot of times we'll print these maps out for growers, but Thom has some SMS technology on his computer, so he stores them all digitally. So we've got his laptop and a couple of NDVI maps, and we're going to be taking a look at one of his blocks. Thom, can you tell me what exactly we're looking at in terms of a sensor package that this map represents?
Yeah, this is a NDVI map that I collected when I was fungicide spraying. This one happened to be my 10 to 16 inch stage in the growing season, and I just mapped 20 to 30 acres here on this block that we're looking at.
Okay. It looks like normally we would trim some of this data before we made any real decisions, but it looks like all the untrimmed data is around the edges, and discounting that, we've got a 4.6 acre block, an 8.4 acre block, and an 8.1 acre block, all divided up based on their NDVI classifications. So there's some things we could do to this data to create some management zones, but if we didn't get there, we do see some reasonable patterns here. And I think I would suggest, looking at these three separate blocks, that you've got the most northern block does look like overall it's a little bit healthier than everything else. Does that sort of reflect your experience with the blocks?
Yeah, it does. One thing on our farm, we're all Concord growers, so all of our trellis is pretty well uniform. It's all machine pruned with a hand follow-up, so we set the sensor at one height and just sense all of our vineyards when we're spraying at the same height. So it's showing this map to me that we have the dark blue is obviously a better growing area than one of the lighter color blues.
Now, is there a concern in, let's say, the west block or certain areas that you kind of think what's driving that NDVI reading down and you want to do something about it, or are you just kind of thinking that there are some differences and you're not sure how to manage them?
Well, that's a good question. When I look at any map, NDVI map, yield map, or just any map as far as that goes, I look at what's it telling me, and what am I looking to get out of it. Like, this is NDVI, so the high means or the dark blue in this case would mean it's a bigger vine, healthier vine, and I'm assuming that it would be also a higher crop, and I would figure that out with crop estimation. But I mean, I use this map right here as a base for crop estimation, but I also would use it as well once I find out what the crop is in each one of the 3 to 4 zones, possibly a fungicide, insecticide, spraying with it too, like along the woods. It might need extra spray if there's more crop there or where there's shade.
Okay. So if there is a real or a legitimate problem with a vineyard or a part of a vineyard, like too much water or not enough nitrogen, NDVI is not really going to tell us that. And I'm not going to know, or the viticulturalist isn't going to know. Thom might know, and we might be able to have a discussion where if he thinks there is a problem, what we can do about it. But it sounds like in this case, it may just be soil and weather related environmental conditions that are driving these differences. And if that's the case, certainly if we were talking about this in real time, so this scan was taken about 7 months ago, give or take. The immediate problem right now is crop load. So even if we don't know what the problem is or why some of these areas are undercropped or overcropped, we first want to figure out, so we have some vine size differences, we want to figure out what the crop load is in those different areas. So dark blue, light blue, and sort of a turquoise aquamarine represents the worst color in this case. We want to take some samples or have Thom take some samples in all three of those areas to see what yield looks like 30 days post-bloom. And in doing that, we can start to approximate how nervous he feels about his crop size and his crop load, and then make some adjustments based on hopefully not just this NDVI map, but also some pruning weight map, so we can use this to take some manual measurements of pruning weight and come up with crop load. But that's what we would do if, I think, from my background in economics, that's what I would really urge a grower to do if we had not yet identified a problem like nitrogen or water or potassium deficiency that was driving these differences. So we could come up with a map and show you where to take samples for, if this was in real time for your, for at least your yield.
Mm-hmm.
And we would probably do that, if we did that along this area and over in here, you wouldn't necessarily have to drive your four-wheeler or your harvester all over the place to get it done. We've got some rows in those areas that represent all three different zones that we want to operate in.
Well, and like on our farm, we stress on crop load and crop management, but we're starting to lean towards these maps for also nutrient plans and plant tissue analysis, so that way we start getting exactly as many values as we can that we want to collect off the vine to an exact area, more so than just treating it as a full block.
Right, certainly. And so I think, it's important to keep in mind that NDVI is a relative measurement of green tissue that's being absorbed by the plant, basically, is a simple way of thinking about it. So this can be really informative in terms of how a grower structures his soil samples. And I think Thom already, probably what's going on here is Thom already has 5-6 years of experience in doing things like that. So he's sort of skipping ahead to, well, once you have those soil samples structured across these different zones, you can then start to think about how to do some variable rate soil management. And I think this may be a good map. You obviously had opportunities to take some other post-bloom NDVIs, so we actually have access on this one block to 5 different NDVI scans over the course of the season. So we could take a look at those, and if we see some reasonable patterns that are really stagnant across the growing season, certainly when you go take your soil samples probably in August or September or November, definitely not in October, we could use these maps to take those soil samples, and then you'd have hopefully a better result in terms of your soil samples. There are also some other sensors we can use that might help drive where soil samples are taken. Thom's got experience with those as well, but one of the big ones is our sled that takes electromagnetic readings that sort of approximate soil type and do a better job of mapping it than some of your traditional soil maps. But that, soil type is not always what's driving nutrition. We do see some issues, especially with potassium, that yield can actually be what's driving nutritional shortages, not the actual soil type. So it can work both ways, and that's why NDVI is certainly a useful tool for seeing what's going on in terms of trying to figure out where to measure soil health issues. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below or contact our offices as well.